Teachers really do feel demoralized when they lose the ability to teach the way they feel is best and to put their own creative spin and their personalization into their lesson plans. So when they get that scripted curriculum, it often feels like the instructional practices that they enjoy, or the joy just in general of teaching, has been taken away from them.
I have something just a little different today. That was the voice of Erin Sponaugle. You may remember her from an earlier episode where I had her on my podcast and we talked about teacher burnout. Well, today I'm able to share with you the conversation we had over on her podcast, and we talked about so many amazing things that are important to the creative teachers that I know are listening in right now. We talked about creativity, how to hold on to that creativity for yourself and for your classroom. We talked about the scripted curriculum, how we have to keep up with the pace of the curriculum. We talked about testing and teacher autonomy. So I can't wait to let you listen in on our conversation. Let's dive in. Hey friends, welcome to Enjoy Teaching Again, the podcast for teachers who love the work but need a little spark to bring the joy back. I'm your host, Elizabeth Peterson, classroom teacher, arts integration specialist, and passionate educator of over 25 years. If you're overwhelmed by behaviors, disengaged students, and long, exhausting days, you are not alone. But together, we can turn things around and you can teach with confidence and purpose again. So locate that cold coffee of yours, find your favorite pen, I know you have one, and let's dive in. It's time to get inspired and enjoy teaching again. My friend, I want to personally invite you into the Classroom Reset. This is my reset framework that is designed to help you improve student behavior, increase engagement, and actually enjoy teaching again in just 6 weeks. Inside, I'm going to walk you through step by step how to build a calm and connected classroom, how to really rethink your classroom culture, how to engage your students in so many creative ways, even if you are required to teach using a scripted curriculum. Yes, I have found ways to make it possible. How to reduce behavior issues without losing yourself in the process, and how to truly support your students' social emotional needs in ways that will not pile more on top of what you're already doing. Listen, you do not have to figure this out all by yourself. Let me help you. I have the entire framework already laid out. All you need to do is walk it with me. So if you're ready for calm, for some clarity, if you're actually ready to enjoy your classroom again, I want you to head over to theinspiredclassroom.com/reset and see if this is right for you. I would love to walk this journey with you.
We're going to be talking about a topic that really has been impacting teachers as of late. And that's when you enjoy teaching, and when one of the things you like best about being a teacher is being able to be creative and create special experiences and lessons for your students. What do you do when you have that record scratch moment and you are handed a scripted curriculum or given very strict guidelines as to what you can and can't teach, and that creativity, that teacher autonomy is taken away from you? When that happens, teachers tend to really lose their joy, and it impacts morale school-wide. So we're going to talk today what teachers can do to combat that, and ways that you can still be creative even when you are in a situation where it feels like the creativity has been taken out of the classroom. So, as I was just saying there, teachers really do feel demoralized when they lose the ability to teach the way they feel is best and to put their own creative spin and their personalization into their lesson plans. So when they get that scripted curriculum, it often feels like the instructional practices that they enjoy, or the joy just in general of teaching, has been taken away from them. So how can teachers still find room for creativity without breaking the rules that a scripted curriculum or stricter instructional guidelines may have?
I love this topic because I live it. Right. And I know you have as well. And, I have conversations at least a few times a week with some of my colleagues, and we're talking about our scripted curriculum, the pace at which we need to keep up with things. And so many teachers just feel like that joy of teaching is stripped away when they're given a program like that. And then we're asked to do it with fidelity, right? We've probably all
Fidelity to
heard
the
that
core.
word. And it's just, it can be really frustrating because so many of us teachers went in thinking we were going to be able to be inspiring to our kids, and we were going to be able to, create lessons for them that are going to just make them into better humans and teach the content. And so much of that is just stripped away. And now there are programs, and I know I'm preaching to the choir right now, but there are so many programs that are literally scripted, where you are holding on to your book and reading
Yeah.
lesson after lesson. But I know that there is ways to help teachers with this, because I see it time and again. And even though I feel like I am teaching some of my subjects in a somewhat scripted way, and I have in the past as well, I've had different various levels of scripted things that I've needed to do. My approach to arts integration, because I've been doing it for so long, my approach is really practical and a way that teachers can use different strategies in ways that just kind of just like fit in here and there. And there's strategies that I'm sure we'll kind of get into it a little bit, but there's strategies that can just be used at the drop of a hat, can be used to enhance any lesson, and really practical, because that's what teachers need. And we need to be able to have moments of creativity throughout our day for our students, but also for ourselves, so that we don't sucked down into, the drudgery of feeling like we just have no control over what we're teaching our students, when we all know that they need a little extra. They need a little bit more inspired teaching.
Yeah. Agree. We have to use our brain as a muscle too, just like the kids.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. And like all those things you're saying are things that I started to feel towards my end of teaching in fifth grade. And when an art teacher opportunity came open, I jumped at it because I thought there's a chance for me to get my autonomy and my freedom back in the classroom. So, but
Yes.
let's talk about where this push is coming from. For what's pushing the
Yeah.
scripted and more stringent guidelines as to what you're going to teach and how you're going to teach in the classroom. This push is mostly coming from the desire to raise student achievement, or test scores. Be more layman's terms, test scores. We want higher
Yep.
test scores. And that seems to be the driving force and what teachers hear a lot about. We need to do this to bring our test scores up, or this is where they at right now data-wise. We need to do this to get them here. And it all seems to be like a numbers game sometimes. So why do you think creativity, or even how is creativity so essential right now in education, especially with the pressure to hit these high standards and to raise test scores?
Yeah. And it's like you said, that push, right? We can't push kids into doing better. It's just not natural, right?
Yeah.
And, I've had years where I have pushed and pushed and pushed to, get those test scores going, and making sure that my students are going to know every little last drop of content that I can before they take the test. But I had a real eye-opening moment, actually, a few years back when I was prepping my fourth graders for the math MCAS, which is back then, I guess it was the first year that kids were taking MCAS. And so it was a huge thing. And so a couple of days before the test, I decided to do something drastic. And I decided that we weren't going to do any testing prep. We weren't going to do any content learning. And instead, we took an entire school day, well, as much as I could get out of them, without them, going to recess and this and that and the other
Yeah.
thing. But I kept my kids and I had what I called a studio day with them. And we created, and then we journaled about it, and we shared, and we just had this pause before the test. And what came out of that was that my students had their own revelations of, oh, that kind of took a lot of the stress off. They came in ready for the test in a way that was different than just, I know all the math stuff, Mrs. Peterson. I know all the ELA stuff that I need to do. I know how to write this narrative. Instead, they were just calm and ready to take on the test. And that, I think, was such a great moment for all of us to really understand that you can't push until the bitter end. Sometimes you have to take that moment. But to kind of more answer your question about, why creativity is so essential, it's an engaging thing. Students are engaged with their learning when they're doing things in a more creative way. So if we want their learning to stick, sometimes we have to stop going just by the book, but thinking about how can we tackle this at a different angle? How can we slow things down a little bit, do things a little differently? Because that creativity and that use of the arts in that way can just deepen their learning and help it to really solidify for themselves. And that type of learning, I know, is ultimately what we really want for our students,
Yes.
not just for them to pass the test. And studies have shown over decades that the more we do that type of teaching, where we're taking our time, we're learning the content, we're engaging our students, the better they do at the test too.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Yeah.
That is true. And also, you mentioned there with the stress that tests cause, and when they're stressed out, they can't. Anybody can't concentrate or do their best, and we put all this pressure on ourselves and them, and sometimes that pressure backfires. Does not give you the results
Yes.
you want, and doesn't allow you to reach the levels that you anticipated or had hoped for. So, let's talk about social emotional learning here in the
Okay.
arts. And since we're talking, I just brought up stress and what that does to our ability to perform. How does incorporating the arts support social emotional learning? We hear that buzzword a lot, but we don't always
Oh, yeah.
hear how to apply it in our classrooms. So how does incorporating the arts support social emotional learning and student well-being in general? What changes do you see when students, you've kind of already touched on this a little bit, embrace this approach?
Yeah. So arts is one of my favorite topic to talk about in education, and SEL is definitely a close second, because that is something that we really need to address with our students. And teachers are obviously getting more and more well-versed in social emotional learning and the importance of it. And the thing with the arts is that the arts just basically, they embody SEL. They are like social emotional learning in action. If you think about, how you express yourself through visual art, how you work together when you're playing with an ensemble, when you're putting yourself in someone else's shoes as you're working with theater and drama, and becoming a little bit more empathetic to a character that you're portraying. Like, all these things are those skills that we want our students to be able to learn and practice and be able to get better and better at. And so when teachers are able to embrace this creative approach to SEL, which in my world has become SEAL, social emotional artistic learning, they're really working proactively also to help students, and that can actually reduce student behaviors in general and just help the students overall and
Yeah.
teachers.
So that's a really good point, and how that impacts how we social emotionally impacts how we perform and how we interact with each other, or how students
Yeah.
interact with each other as well. So you bring up a lot about being creative in the classroom, but
Mm-hmm.
I hear a lot of teachers say, even aside from the autonomy issues with a scripted curriculum, they'll
Yep.
say, as far as integrating the arts and being creative in the classroom, say, well, I'm not artsy, or I can't draw a straight line, or
Yep.
you don't want to see me draw something on the board. So there are teachers that have like maybe an aversion to being creative or trying creative things.
Sure. Yeah.
So how can teachers overcome that fear in order to be creative in their classrooms for the betterment of their students?
So one big thing is in your own mindset about what this really does mean for yourself in the classroom. So it's less about being artsy and it's more about being open to things. So you don't need to be a master painter. You don't need to be a talented musician to do these types of things. You just need a willingness to try, because your students, they don't need you to be perfect at any of these things, but they do need an opportunity. And one thing that I know a lot of teachers, when you start to think about, the role that arts can play into your classroom, you start to understand that these arts experiences, they're not for you as the teacher. They're really for your students, because your students have so many talents and interests and ideas and capabilities. And so you want them to be able to utilize some of those in your classroom. And your job in that case is to be open. I remember I had a student a number of years ago, and she just sticks out into my head because she was super, super shy and super, just didn't want to speak up or anything. But then finally, once you start to understand that I would be open to her doing some visual art, something that she was extremely talented with, and I let her do some things that she wanted to do to show her understanding, or even do like an extra part of a project, she started to flourish. And let me tell you, I am no visual artist. I'm one of those teachers that can't draw a straight line. Like, I'm a stick figure kind of person. Whenever I draw on the board to do like a math word problem, I get laughed at by my students. Like, it's bad. But, I didn't let that dictate her experience in the classroom. And of course, teachers who are interested in doing a little bit more arts in the classroom, they just need to start with something that they're familiar with, or enjoy themselves. Like for me, I really love music. I brought music into my classroom as the first thing. And then I was able to expand myself by taking a course, or, learning from a colleague or learning from someone else. And, that's where teachers being able to, we have a motto at the Inspired Classroom. It's get inspired to be inspiring. And so I think teachers really need to put that action in to go seek what is going to inspire you, so that you can bring some of these experiences into your classroom. And, I've had numerous opportunities for teachers over the years to try new art forms in a way that's teacher centered, so that they get really comfortable with a new strategy, a new art form, a new activity, so that then they can really feel comfortable bringing that kind of thing into their classroom too.
Yeah, I like what you said there about being open, and that it's not necessarily for you as the teacher,
Yep.
but doing it for your students. That's a good way to frame it, and to be brave and try something new, and know that it's for them and for their experience.
Yeah.
Those are all very good points.
Thank you.
So, what are some? It's like you mentioned, like, just got to be brave. Some of these times you just got to be brave. You want to be creative for your students and for the kids in your classroom. You got to just go out there and you got to try something new. So, what are
Mm.
some small, everyday ways that a teacher can weave in some creative expression into their instruction, even into subjects that aren't necessarily artistic, or that are
Mhm.
just very difficult to squeeze in things that are
Mm.
creative and out of the box?
Yeah. Yeah. So I love doing doodling. Okay. I have a lot of students who really thrive when it comes to doing little sketches and doing little doodles, and it can be designs and people or whatever it might be. And so I actually use doodling as an everyday strategy thing. So if a student is working on a math worksheet and they finish early after they check their work, I invite them to do like a math border around their paper. And it really, and then sometimes they look at me like, what are you talking about? A math board? I'm like, I don't know, do a math border. You figure it out. Right. And it gets them thinking in a whole new way, and it gets them, am I going to use like math symbols? Am I going to draw out the word problem that we just did? You know, so doing that type of thing, just inviting students to do some doodling. Another way that I love to use just quick doodles is at the end of a lesson. Sometimes I will ask the students to like draw an emoji of how you feel with what we did today, and give them an opportunity to just, border out a corner of their paper, or even have like an exit ticket, that they can just doodle out an emoji and add a sentence that kind of goes with that really, really quick. Another really great, quick arts integration strategy is Tableau. And for anyone who doesn't know what Tableau is, it is like a frozen picture that you make with your body and your facial expression, your body language. You can do it alone. You can do it sitting. You can do it standing. You can do it with a partner or a group. But it's, basically, you'll like, as a teacher, you'll count down 3, 2, 1, and kids freeze in a pose. And so this is such an, like, I call it an in my back pocket arts integration strategy, because it's so simple. You can literally do it at the drop of a hat and use it to help students to like, think about what the character is thinking, or what the character is doing in the story at any moment, and help them to kind of like get into the head of the character in your story. You can do it with, social studies or history. How did, George Washington actually feel as he was crossing the Delaware, like freeze in 3, 2, 1, and then have them pose like him. And when you embody some of these characters, and you can do inanimate objects too, but when you embody these characters and you embody these things in these situations, you can really start to think a little bit more deeply about what's going on. And so that can be really just a quick but very powerful couple of strategies to use.
Yeah, and none of them involve the teacher having to showcase their artistic abilities.
That is so true.
Yeah,
Yep.
so it's like you don't have to worry about anybody judging your stick figures on the board.
Yeah.
So as teachers,
Mhm.
there's very little time left for us.
Yeah.
If we can give our students our creativity, and I find this is something that I battle with a little bit as an art teacher now, because I'm creative and like to do things outside the classroom, but I'm giving a lot of that creative energy to my classroom during the day, as opposed to, even more so than when I taught 5th grade myself. So we have to kind of find ways to allow ourselves to be creative off the clock
Yes.
in the classroom as well. But also we need to honor our own needs as
Mm.
people, just because we
Yeah.
are people. We're not robots. There's no robo teachers here. Hopefully never. So
Hopefully
how
never.
do you yeah how do you personally stay creative as an educator, especially when the system itself, teaching itself, can feel kind of limiting all day?
Mm.
How do you try to stay creative as personally and as an educator?
Yeah. Yeah. Because part of that definitely is teachers always have the two side, their teacher side, and then we need to have that personal side as well, which I know you speak to so many teachers about that. And I think that's such an important message for all of us to really embody. And so, for me, I have learned I just need to build it into my school day. It's as much for me as it is for my students. And personally, I do try to play the piano every so often. I try to keep my fingers, nimble and play through a couple of songs every so often. I don't do it nearly as much as I really want to. But honestly, my joy and creativity has changed over the years, and I truly enjoy creating workshops,
Mhm.
creating, updating the website, like taking that personal, the design elements and kind of like utilizing it that way. I really enjoy audio editing podcasts. I've been audio editing since I was, like 6 years old with my Fisher Price tape recorder. Like, it's just so funny how what you did when you were so young truly does become, if you let it, if
Yeah.
you allow your creativity to come out in its most authentic way, it really does. So, I made mixtapes with the best of them, turned into CDs, turned into digital audio, and now, I'm publishing the podcast and messing with the music and the audio and the clips, and I just absolutely love it. It's yeah, so that's kind of that has become my creative outlet for me.
So, I have to keep the faith here that there are schools and there are places in our country that want to see schools or want to see teachers be creative and have the autonomy to create and meet their students' needs and nurture them from a social emotional perspective. So, for schools or
Mm.
districts that want to bring more arts integration, where should they start, and what is one mindset shift
Yes.
that could really open the door for that?
Yeah, I like that because I think it does start with a mindset shift, right? And the biggest shift is truly understanding, and I kind of think we all do, that the arts are not an add on.
Right.
They really are not. They are so central to how so many of us learn, teachers, students, all ages. And what I love about the arts is that it's so naturally differentiated, and
Mhm.
it just reaches anyone at their own point of entry. And then you can keep on going from there, and having that understanding that it deepens learning, it enhances your lessons. It provides so many social and emotional benefits to both teachers and students. I mean, if you want happy teachers,
Yeah.
let them be creative, right? Let
Yeah.
them utilize some of these activities, these strategies, these approaches in with their students. You will have happy teachers, and happy teachers are going to make happy students. I mean, the studies show that it even helps with attendance rates because it's something that students and teachers are looking forward to because it's engaging and exciting. And so if you truly understand that, you just have to have an admin team who has the guts to really acknowledge that the arts can improve experiences for so many teachers, and then just start with a quick workshop. Get teachers to just try it out for themselves in their own, teacher centered workshop so that they can start to understand the benefits that they'll experience for themselves. And they're going to want to bring that because that's how teachers are. They're, they're awesome, right? They experience something and they find value in it, and they just want to do it with their students like the next day if they can.
Yeah.
So
I think
that's where
that
we
could
should
be a
keep going.
tagline. Happy teachers, happy students.
Absolutely. That is my tagline on my admin page.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, we're there. We're there. All
Yeah.
right. So, to get to this point, how can we as teachers advocate for more classroom autonomy and creative control of our teaching, and even when we are, being pushed to take a more scripted or standardized approach?
Yeah. So I'm a big advocate for sometimes you just got to do it. Sometimes you just got to close a door and do something that you think is going to be enjoyable for your students. They're going to really get something out of it. But then invite people in. When you're doing some of these things, invite the admin in. I did that once. I had my kids like enveloped in something that was, an arts-based activity. And I actually remember calling my administrator and go, hey, if you want to see these kids, they are on fire right now. I'm so excited about this. She didn't show up, but that's okay. I invited her. But invite the admin in and don't feel like, you have to do creative things, in the corner of the Friday before vacation only. Like, it can and should be part of what you do. You owe that to yourself and to your students as well. And invite parents too, or get them, email them and let them know about some exciting aha moment that your kids had, or keep some anecdotal notes that you can really share at conferences or meetings, and just, have some of these great stories and great moments that you can really share. It really is all about sharing some of the good stuff that you have happening in your classroom.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. So if you could give teachers one piece of advice about reclaiming creativity and the joy of teaching, no matter what curriculum they're handed, what would it be?
Yeah, I would say it is possible. It really is. I help teachers with this all the time, and I know it's possible. And it really comes down to taking a good look at what you can and you can't control. And I know that you know all about this, Erin, because you talk about it in your book as well, right? So, for
Yes.
example, you can't control the program or the curriculum or the pacing guide that you've been given, but you absolutely can learn simple ways to infuse creativity into those lessons to help make things come alive, right? You might not be able to control the students that you actually have in your classroom, right? But you can control the classroom culture that you establish for them and helping them with the behaviors and just your overall classroom management. And this is the kind of work that I love doing inside my group coaching program, the Classroom Reset. It's built for teachers who just really love teachers, but that spark has been missing. And I feel like, all teachers really deserve to get back to that first year teacher feeling where you were excited and you wanted to just make a change in the world. And I really do believe that no matter where teachers are in their career, they can absolutely get that back. I hope this episode inspired you, encouraged you, or gave you a fresh idea to try. And if so, I would love for you to take a screenshot and text it to one of your teaching buddies. I'm so grateful that you landed here with me today, and it would mean the world to me if you would leave me a review over on Apple Podcast. Thanks so much for being here, and I'll catch you on the next episode. This is Elizabeth Peterson reminding you to get inspired so you can be inspiring to your students and enjoy teaching again.